A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Samraj Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki jai. Nama Sarvashra Haridas Thakur ki jai. Vanchakaho Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Dharana Jayadvaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta ki jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shramakam Radha Kuniji Gauritam ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Jai. Jagannath Puri ki jai. Rangamani ki jai. Ramanamani ki jai. Tulsi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Samavita Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to you, Samavita. All glories to you, Samavita. All glories to you, Samavita. Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Srimad Bhagavatam 9.10.3. Tasyanucharitam Rajan Rishibhis Tattvadarshibhihi Shrutam Hi Varnitam Puri Tvaya Sita Pater Tasyanucharitam Rajan Rishibhis Tattvadarshibhihi Shrutam hi varnitam puri Tvaya sita pater muhu Tasyanucharitam Rajan Rishibhis Tattvadarshibhihi Shrutam hi varnitam puri Tvaya sita pater muhu
Tasyanucharitam Rajan Rishibhis Tattvadarshibhihi Shrutam hi varnitam bhuri Tvaya sita pater muhu
Tasyanucharitam Rajan Rishibhis Tattvadarshibhihi Shrutam hi varnitam bhuri Tvaya sita pater muhu
Tasyanucharitam Rajan Rishibhis Tattvadarshibhihi Shrutam hi varnitam bhuri Tvaya sita pater muhu
Tasyanucharitam Rajan Rishibhis Tattvadarshibhihi Shrutam hi varnitam bhuri Tvaya sita pater muhu
Tasyanucharitam Rajan Rishibhis Tattvadarshibhihi Shrutam hi varnitam
Shutam Hivanitam Bhuri
Jaya Sita Patemuhu.
Jaya Sita Patemuhu
Tasya,
Tasya
of him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
Lord Ramachandra,
Lord Ramachandra,
and his brothers,
and his brothers,
Anucharitam,
Anucharitam,
transcendental activities,
transcendental activities,
Rajan,
Rajan,
O King,
O King,
Maharaj Parikshit,
Maharaj Parikshit,
Rishihi, by great sages,
by great sages,
or saintly persons,
or saintly persons,
Tattvadarshinihi,
Advadashihi,
by persons who know the absolute truth,
by persons who know the absolute truth,
Shrutam,
Shrutam,
have all been heard.
all heard,
He, indeed,
indeed,
Varnitam,
Varnitam,
as they have been so nicely described,
as they have been so nicely described,
Bhuri,
Bhuri,
many,
many,
Tvaya,
Tvaya,
by you,
by you,
Sita Patehe,
Sita Patehe,
of Lord Ramchandra,
Lord Ramachandra,
the husband of Mother Sita,
the husband of Mother Sita,
Muhuhu,
Muhu,
more than often.
more than often.
O King Parikshit, the transcendental activities of Lord Ramchandra have been described by great saintly persons who have seen the truth. Because you have heard again and again about Lord Ramchandra, the husband of Mother Sita, I shall describe these activities only in brief.
One or two of those who need translation. Someone's translating here?
Please listen.
Someone help Maharaj with the mic?
A little higher. But no, we have to do that too. See these little things? They're there so that you loosen them first, then move it, and then tighten it. Okay, you can tighten it. Okay. Purport. Modern Rakshasas, posing as educationally advanced merely because they have doctorates, have tried to prove that Lord Ramchandra is not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but an ordinary person. But those who are learned and spiritually advanced will never accept such notions. They will accept the descriptions of Lord Ramchandra and his activities only as presented by Tattvadarshis, those who know the absolute truth. In Bhagavad Gita 4:34, the Supreme Personality of Godhead advises, Tadviddhi pranipadena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. Unless one is Tattvadarshi, in complete knowledge of the absolute truth, one cannot describe the activities of the personality of God. Therefore, although there are many so-called Ramayans, or histories of Lord Ramchandra's activities. Some of them are not actually authoritative. Sometimes Lord Ramchandra's activities are described in terms of one's own imaginations, speculations, or material sentiments. But the characteristics of Lord Ramchandra should not be handled as something imaginary. While describing the history of Lord Ramchandra, Shukadeva Goswami told Maharaj Parikshit, "You have already heard about the activities of Lord Ramchandra." Apparently, therefore, 5,000 years ago, there were many Ramayans, or histories of Lord Ramchandra's activities, and there are many still. But we must select only those books written by Tattvadarshis, Jnaninas Tattvadarshana, not the books of so-called scholars who claim knowledge only on the basis of the doctorate. This is a warning by Shukadeva Goswami. Vishidhis Tattvadarshibhi. Although the Ramayana composed by Valmiki is a huge literature, the same activities are summarized here by Shukadeva Goswami in a few verses. Om Jnanatimidandhasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshurniditam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Bhuvakadam Hayam Tadhati Shapadam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Gaganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Bhagavan Sahagana Lolita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Chakpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Gopatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Devacha Pasitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasa Adi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Tasyanu Charitam Rajan, Vishidhis Tattvadarshibhi, Shrutam Hi, Panitam Bhudi, Tvaya Sita Pater, Vahu. Tasyanu Charitam Rajan, O king, you've heard about Lord Ramchandra. Anucharitam, as described by authorities. The process of hearing is to hear from authorities, from self-realized souls coming in the parampara system, not from mental speculators or sentimentalists. The Krishna consciousness is a science of God. And that science has to be explained by qualified persons. Qualified person is not a person who's been to a university and earned a degree. Practically speaking, the qualification at the university is that you have to disbelieve everything about, specifically in religious studies, you have to disbelieve everything you're reading. You have to see it as some sort of social construct, some sort of useful human invention. You can't look at it as factual. Otherwise, they throw you out of the university. You don't belong here. So they're the least qualified. They're the least qualified to speak about these things or write about these things. But they're taken as authoritative on the strength of a mundane degree. So mundaners may follow that course, but they'll never understand the science of Krishna by that approach. They'll remain within the world of mundane vision. Therefore, Rishibhis, Tattvadarshibhi. One should hear from the Tattvadarshis. Tattva means the factual truth. The factual truth. Tattva. Paranti tattva vidas tattva. Yadgana. The whole Srimad Bhagavatam is aimed at understanding the highest truth, Paratattva. And that highest truth is not understood by the lowest methods, by gross speculation, by the material senses or material mind. It has to be understood by those who can see, Tattvadarshi, who can see, what is that? Pashanti Jnana Chakshusha. Vimudha na anupashanti. Pashanti Jnana Chakshusha. The fools who are simply interested in academic achievements don't follow the process of seeing through the parampara system. Therefore they can't see. Vimudha na anupashanti. Who can see? Jnana Chakshusha. Those who have purified eyes of knowledge. Those eyes of knowledge are opened by the grace of Krishna and Guru, not by some materialistic process. So Rishibhi means also sages, those whose senses are self-controlled. We know one very prominent scholar in Indic studies who has openly said that their process of writing is to have a few drinks and sit down at the typewriter and get going. The computer. And then whenever the scholar writes is accepted, it's tough. Rishibhi. Rishis are samadhamma tapasya. They're self-controlled, purified, austere. In this way. Shanti Raja. So the rishis, sages, who are Tattvadarshis, who can actually see, they're the ones we need to hear from. Shrutam Ivranitam Guri. Certainly you've heard many times, you've heard a lot about Lord Ramchandra. Lord Ramchandra is extremely famous, and there are so many temples of Lord Ramchandra, and so many Ramayans also. The Mula Ramayana, or the original Ramayana is Valmiki Ramayana. And there are many other Ramayans, just here in Srimad Bhagavatam, this is also Ramayana, or a description of Lord Ramchandra's activities. But before the Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken, Sukadeva Goswami says, you've already heard so much about Lord Ramchandra. You already heard so much about Lord. That means that there were Ramayans back then. But whatever we hear should be from Yishvara. Shrutam hi varnitam bhuri Tvaya Sita pater moho. Sitapati, Lord Ramchandra, is the husband of Sita. Krishna is always with his energies. So Sita, Ram, Lakshmi Narayana, Radha Krishna. So you've heard many times about Lord Ramchandra. I'll speak something also, but briefly. Because finally Srimad Bhagavatam is focusing on the target of Krishna. If we go deep into Ram Katha, then we only have 7 days. King had his notice. So we're not going to dwell on the pastimes of Lord Ramchandra in great depth. But we'll cover the subject briefly. You've already heard it, so I don't have to speak it again in great detail. But briefly. Because this is the 9th canto. You want to come to the 10th canto, the smiling face of Krishna. We want to come to the description of the activities of the original Krishna, Govinda Vadi Purusha, Samaham. So we'll first speak something about Lord Ramchandra, then we'll move on in the 10th canto to speak about Krishna directly. All right, are there some questions, some comments? Yes.
How do we know these days which Ramayana is genuine?
Do we know which Ramayana is genuine? Srila Prabhupada emphasized many times Valmiki Ramayana. And this Ramayana has spoken in Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, that was spoken in Srimad Bhagavatam. But we don't accept, we don't rely on Ramananda Sagar Ramayana, the video Ramayana. We have to hear from the Lord. Something else? Yes.
Why is the word Darshini being used, Tattva Darshini, specifically? Why not, why seeing the truth? Why not understanding or hearing? Why seeing?
Why seeing rather than hearing? Why Tattva Darshini, seers of the truth rather than hearers of the truth? Well, I've never heard Srila Prabhupada speak on that topic. But it's common, actually. Like, if you explain something to me and I understand it, then I say, oh, I see. Be sort of unusual to say, I hear. You say, I see. where we say, I get the picture.
Non, je comprends, je vois ce que tu veux dire.
So, but seeing implies understanding. It's not just seeing. But seeing means tattvadarshi, seeing the truth. Tattva means also philosophy. It's not that, oh, I see. Now I've looked at the book and I understand. But darshan, seeing, means understanding. Tattvadarshi, those who, and that's the context, it's not those who've just seen with their eyes, but those who've understood by their intelligence, by realization. They see also. Krishna can be seen face to face, Lord Ramchandra is seen face to face. But seeing has to be enlightened seeing. Even if we see, what is that? Prashanapi napashati. We can see without seeing, or see and not actually see. The president of France might walk in the temple, and to me, he just looks like another gentleman. By seeing, he looks like anyone else. But that's the president of France. Oh. By hearing that, I understand. He's a very important person. We see the sun in the sky to be just a big ball of light. But by hearing from the scientists, we understand so much. It's so hot, it's got this and that. So the seeing is done through the ears. Well, we see through the ears, not just through the eyes. With the eyes, we may see something, but by hearing, we understand what that something is. I don't think that fully answers your question. Why is it the convention to say by seeing those who've seen? But maybe partially answered. Okay.
Yes.
Something else? Was that a question? Yes.
So, you say Krishna is always with his energy?
Yes.
Like God and Krishna. So I wonder what my own experience in my own life is that I'm very envious of couples. Like I'm very envious of my brother, and especially my brother with his girlfriend. So I wonder, is that ultimately because I'm envious of Radha Krishna?
You're envious of others, especially your brother and his brother and his girlfriend.
When I see love, in a couple, very beautiful, I become very envious.
When you see a couple who are in love and the girl's very beautiful, and you become envious.
Very intense.
So does that come from envy of Radha Krishna? Yes, ultimately. Envy means, why is he enjoying this? Why him? Why not me? I have some nice food, I give it to him. You're thinking, why not me? We have a desire to enjoy. We want to be, that's our project here, to enjoy. And when others are enjoying and we're not, we become unhappy. Why is he enjoying? Why not me? Someone has a Ferrari. Why him? What would I have to do to get it for a
Qu'est-ce que je
lifetime?
vais faire pour le faire?
Because that tendency is there, we want to enjoy.
Et
And it's a false mentality, because we're not actually enjoyers.
Parce qu'en fait, on n'est pas à la base des
We're not
gens
actually enjoyers. We're
on est des
servants of the enjoyer.
serviteurs de celui qui se
Des-
réjouit éternellement.
Yes. We gave the example yesterday that the hands became envious of the stomach. Why is the stomach getting all the food? We're doing all the work. The stomach's getting all the food. This isn't fair. So, we'll hold on. But they didn't become happy that way. They became happy honoring the serve the stomach.
Mais c'est le processus de gestion.
So we're servants by nature.
La nourriture a été distribuée.
Or
Tous les organes sont
prakriti.
satisfaits.
Prakriti means that which is enjoyed, meant to be enjoyed,
Donc,
to give enjoyment. And Purusha means the enjoyer.
on doit faire
But Krishna is the original enjoyer.
c'est-à-dire il est le bénéficiaire.
But we want to be enjoyers.
Le problème de fond, c'est que nous,
We want to be enjoyers.
le bénéficiaire, à sa place.
Purusha Prakriti Sto Idam Te Prakriti Jandava Karmanam Gunasangasya Sarasabhyam. We're actually meant to be enjoyed, but we take the role of enjoyers, and then we become
Censé être
stuck
un instrument de plaisir.
in material
Mais non,
nature, which appears
on
like something we can enjoy.
on-
The beautiful girlfriend, the nice
il
food,
a une belle
the
fille, une belle fille, quand j'ai
luxury car, the this, that. All appears to be something for us to enjoy.
on a toujours tendance à
But
vouloir
the result of our trying to enjoy the
soi-même.
prakriti, the material energy,
Et donc,
is gunasandasya.
qu'est-ce qui se passe?
And we become
Les contacts la nature
connected with the modes of nature, with passion, with ignorance, with goodness. Asanga Vidyam Purusha. In our natural position, we have nothing to do with these qualities of material nature. But because we want to enjoy material nature, we become stuck. Gunasanga. We become connected with these three modes of contaminated. We're pure, but we become contaminated by these three modes: passion, goodness, ignorance. And what's the result of that? Sunset, knowledge, and moksha. And we have to go through so many lifetimes and lifetimes, some higher, some lower, to enjoy. I wanted to enjoy, all right, nature said that, here, take this stuff and enjoy, enjoy. And this enjoyment project is going on. But it's all based on falsity, because the only enjoyer is Krishna. And in our natural position, we want to give enjoyment to Krishna. We want to give enjoyment to Krishna. And this envy goes very deep in the heart. Or this enjoyment mentality goes very deep in the heart. So Jayadvaita and Maharaja, by this chanting Hare Krishna, we hope to be freed from these unwanted things in the heart. With a purified heart, engage in the service of Krishna. Thank you. Yes.
How to, like, in this verse, there's about scholars cannot see Krishna and about Tatvadashi who can see Krishna, but how for devotee who is just, maybe not devotee, just beginner, who does not see Krishna and truth, spiritual truth, how to distinguish who is just a scholar and who is Tatvadashi, for example, even when we are in the
Hold on so far, Louise. You have a soft voice. What did you say so far? Did you hear?
How to distinguish for the beginner? How to distinguish who is the
Donc,
real
la
scholar
question,
and who is not?
comment distinguer
Then
pendant des fêtes?
And yeah, because in our society also a lot of ideas, a lot of scholars who knows Vedas, who learn all the scriptures, but the ideas is very different and it's very hard to understand who is that Tatvadashi and who is just a scholar.
So who are the scholars, the right scholars?
Yes.
Shrotriya Brahmanishna. The right scholar is the person who's heard from the parampara system, not just the person who's creatively intelligent. I think this, it seems to me, that it appears from blah blah blah, going on speculating in the sophisticated, materialistic way, critical scholarship. That kind of scholar won't help us. The scholar is the person, real scholar. Scholars like Vyasadeva, Jiva Goswami, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami. They're great scholars, Nana, Shastra, Vichara. They studied so many books. But their first qualification is Sri Chaitanya Kripa. They've heard through the disciplic succession. They're not making it up. They're not thinking, well, this is, like a story, a fictional story, you can tell it any way you want. You make the characters do whatever you want. And you can retell the story and add something, subtract something, change something. Folk tales. It doesn't really matter because we know there's really no such person as Brer Rabbit or whoever. Hansel and Gretel, whichever stories you might know from your childhood. It's not an imaginary story. Who are those people? Maybe some tales. Harry Potter. It's not like Harry Potter or whatever you want to think, you just dream it up. No, you don't have any obligation to history when you're talking about Harry Potter or when you're writing about Harry Potter. It's just all coming out of the mind. And it may show cleverness, it may show insight, it may show so many different things. But it doesn't show it has nothing to do with sticking to a truth that everyone has understood in a scientific way. It's just tales. Well, the scholars, although they're not novelists and storytellers, generally, they don't treat the text with greater respect than that. They don't care whether they're studying Katha Upanishad or Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. For them, it's just another subject of study. But it's very interesting. So they can't understand it. They're described to be like persons looking at a bottle of honey. One can't understand the honey by looking at the bottle. You have to open it up. So who can taste the actual honey? Those who've taken up the process, tadvidhi pranipati paripurashena, say that. Those who've followed the process of approaching a bona fide spiritual master, then with questions and with service, in a humble way. Aman, from the beginning of knowledge, is not is humility. Humility. So one has to humbly approach the spiritual master. And who should we approach? Someone who's approached the spiritual master is approached. And they don't approach. They're the real scholars. The Vaishnava quote here, we should hear from the non-devotees, we should hear from the devotees who followed the process. Is that okay? No. What do you mean?
I just see that people, they are following externally, yeah, they accept gurus and accept all the philosophy, but still the ideas are very different, and everybody understands philosophy very different.
And maybe there's different angles of vision. If we hear from those who are following, who are accepted as spiritual master, who are repeating faithfully, then there may be different understandings. When we discuss, I'm giving this class, Gopaswami might give the class a different way. Janananda Maharaj might give the class a different way. So there's so many different things. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he explained one verse, Atmaramas Chamuniyo, with so many meanings for each word. Not that there's only, one meaning, and 15 minutes you describe everything and now we're done. Each verse, each word of Bhagavatam is unlimited. So we can hear and hear and hear. And so many different things can come. But we have to hear from the reliable persons. Reliable person means Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. Those who are hearing from the disciplic succession and who have full faith in Krishna. It's not a very, complicated thing. Like, who's a doctor? Well, he has to study medicine at a reliable medical school. He has to receive the certificate. He has to have a license to practice. And he's a doctor. You don't have to look into his heart and find out. Does he really have the spirit of a doctor? Was his father a doctor? Does he come from a family of doctors? Was he born in the heart of France where many doctors come from? You just have to see, did he, is he practicing? Is he licensed? Has he attended the school? So the spiritual master, Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam, he has to have heard from he has to be coming in the parampara system, and he has to have faith in the subject matter of Krishna consciousness. We shouldn't be sentimental, and we shouldn't be overcritical. Sentimental means we accept people, they may be devotees, non-devotees, they speak nicely. So he has a bhajan band that plays when he sings, and it's so nice. And he's Indian, comes from Vrindavan, he's got a beard, and he dresses like a sadhu. Sentimentally, we hear. And on the other side, we don't want to be overcritical so that we can't hear from anyone, because our mind is always going. We have to, is that here? Openly. Yes, if the person is qualified, otherwise why am I even going? If the person is qualified, let me hear. And let me appreciate. Even Prabhupada, he was in Vrindavan, and he was attending the classes given by his students. He said, and I am enjoying. Not that he was thinking, I can't hear from these people, what do they know? And what is their level of realization? They were speaking from Shastra, and Prabhupada was hearing and enjoying. So we have to follow the process, and follow those who are following. Okay? Yes?
For us who have the Christian education to the beginning, our life is quite the conception of God, who is Achmaram, he need nothing. He's completely satisfied in himself. The mind is quite inconceivable for our mind to how Krishna, God, he take pleasure to embracing the dances of Vraj. This, in this sense, because this is difficult for the mind.
It's difficult for the mind. We have a Christian education, and to have the picture of Krishna is self-satisfied and is enjoying with the gopis. This is, yes. Therefore we have to patiently hear. It's not unreasonable when we hear that God is self-satisfied. Why should he not be self-satisfied? Does he depend on something higher than himself? No. So we have to understand, what is God? Not just that God is the Alpha and Omega, God is the greatest, but is there nothing more than that? So it's not in conflict that God is independent. Not that Christians have to think that God is dependent on someone else. Or that as a Christian, I can't think that God is satisfied within himself. Or so many other things. That God has multifarious energies. What is the difficulty? That he has an energy to create, that he has an energy to destroy, that he has energies to manifest everything. That we're also God's energy. Is that difficult for a Christian to accept? Why should it be difficult? So there's not much information. The biblical texts don't go into much detail about these things. But it's there. Then, what are these energies? How does the knowledge-giving potency work? How does the existence potency work? How does the pleasure-giving potency work? And there's further information. Prabhupada gave the example, you have a little pocket dictionary, and the words are there, a lot of words and definitions. But it's not the same as the big dictionary. The big dictionary is not in contradiction to the small dictionary, but there's more information. And if someone says, well, wait a second, that's not in my little dictionary. No, it doesn't have to be in your little dictionary. This is the big dictionary. Okay. All right. We can stop here. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. All those.
His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj ki.